Mom, I think it's time I took over your finances. From now on, your paycheck comes to me. Those were the words my daughter, Emma, spoke with the calm authority of a corporate executive while sipping tea in my kitchen, the same kitchen I had cooked 1,000 meals in, wiped 1,000 spills from, and filled with every bit of love a mother could pour into a space. She didn't flinch when she said it. She didn't look away or even soften her tone. She said it like it was the most logical thing in the world, as if I were a tired employee being gracefully transitioned into retirement, and she was my new manager. I blinked at her, the mug of warm tea in my hand suddenly too heavy to lift. The scent of chamomile, which just moments ago had comforted me, now turned bitter in my nostrils. "Excuse me?" I finally managed, my voice quieter than I intended. Emma took another sip, crossed her legs, and leaned back in the chair her late father once built for our kitchen. "It's not a big deal, Mom. It's just time. You've done a lot for me. Let me do something for you now. I'll handle your bills, your savings, everything. You can finally relax." Her words were smooth, almost sweet, but beneath the surface, I heard something else, a dismissal, a quiet invalidation. She wasn't offering to help me. She was informing me, deciding, taking control. I stared at her carefully curated face, her perfect hair, her business casual confidence. I searched her eyes for something, affection, concern, maybe even guilt. But all I found was that cool, clinical detachment she had perfected over the years, the same tone she used when talking to her clients on the phone. Only I wasn't a client, I was her mother. For a moment I considered arguing. I opened my mouth, then closed it. Not because I agreed, but because I suddenly needed more time. Time to understand why. Why was this girl whom I had raised alone after her father died now talking to me like I was a burden? So instead, I smiled. A smile I had learned over 6 decades of surviving. Soft, polite, quiet. A smile that said, "I trust you even when I wasn't sure anymore." I nodded gently. "That's thoughtful of you," I said. "Maybe it's a good idea." Her smile widened instantly. "See? You'll thank me later." She stood up, kissed the top of my head without really looking at me, and walked out of the kitchen as if nothing earth-shattering had just happened, as if she hadn't just declared her intent to take over every piece of my financial life. And that was the beginning. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling fan, listening to it groan with every rotation like it too, was tired of carrying things. My mind raced through every conversation with Emma over the last year, every Friday dinner where she arrived late, ate fast, and left earlier than she came. Every unanswered call, every subtle shift in her tone from warmth to impatience. But this was something new. She wanted control, not just of my money, but of my choices, my autonomy, my life. The next evening, Friday, like clockwork, she returned, not alone, of course. Her husband Daniel trailed behind her, already loosening his tie and scanning the kitchen for signs of dinner. Only this time, there was no aroma of roasted chicken, no steam rising from the stovetop, no neatly set table. There was just me, sitting in the middle of the empty kitchen. A kitchen without chairs, without a dining table, without the oak hutch that had held my grandmother's china for decades. It was all gone. Emma stepped in first and froze mid-step. Daniel stopped behind her, confused. And then the scream came, sharp, high-pitched, somewhere between disbelief and panic. "Where is everything?" she shouted. I said nothing. Emma turned to me, her voice shrill now. "Mom, what did you do?" Daniel's eyes darted around. "Where's the table? The TV? The sofa?" I lifted my tea to my lips and sipped slowly. "I sold them," I said simply. Emma gasped. "Why would you do that?" I shrugged. "I needed cash. You said you were taking over my finances. I thought I should have some money of my own, just in case." Daniel scoffed. "That's irrational." And then she said it, words that hit harder than any slap. "You're being selfish, Mom. Selfish. Me, the woman who raised her alone, who skipped meals so she could eat, who worked double shifts, gave up dreams, never remarried. Because all I ever wanted was for Emma to feel secure. And now I was selfish. That's when something inside me shifted, something quiet and final. I stood up and faced her. "Dinner's not ready," I said, "and there won't be any. If you're hungry, feel free to eat somewhere else." For a moment, they both stood there, frozen, and then Daniel mumbled something about entitlement and mental health. Emma's eyes narrowed. She stepped closer, her tone low and sharp. "You'd better be careful, Mom. Women your age, living alone, bad things can happen." It wasn't just a warning, it was a threat. And in that moment, I saw the truth. Not the daughter I loved, but the woman she had become. Entitled, calculated, cold. They left in a storm of footsteps and slammed doors. And I stood in my empty kitchen. Finally free. I wasn't always this woman, the one sitting alone in an empty kitchen surrounded by the echoes of words that shouldn't have been spoken. Once, I was just Margaret Hill, wife, mother, dreamer. Emma came into my life on a Wednesday morning in April. The air was still cold from spring's hesitation to fully arrive, and the hospital room buzzed with activity. My husband, Thomas, held my hand the whole time, tears in his eyes as he whispered, "You did it, baby. She's here." She was the most beautiful thing I had ever seen, wrinkled, red, and wailing like a tiny protester against life's first injustice. But in that moment, I knew there was nothing I wouldn't do for her. Back then, our world was simple. We lived in a modest apartment in Oak Ridge, a sleepy, working-class neighborhood where people still waved at each other and left their front doors unlocked. Thomas worked in construction. I worked part-time at the library and stayed home with Emma when I could. Money was tight, but love was abundant. That changed the day Thomas didn't come home. It was a rainy afternoon in October, the kind where the sky seemed to press down on your shoulders. I remember Emma was 5 months old, napping in her crib when the call came. Construction site accident. Fatal. I stood there with the phone still pressed to my ear, the dial tone humming like a cruel lullaby while my knees buckled. He was gone, just like that, and everything, our plans, our future, our safety, was gone with him. I had no choice but to survive. I found a full-time job as a secretary at a local medical office. It paid barely enough to cover rent and baby formula. I picked up cleaning jobs in the evenings, offices, stores, sometimes homes of people who smiled at me too politely and never looked me in the eye. I dropped Emma off at the sitter before the sun rose and picked her up when it was long gone. I missed her first steps. I missed her first word, but I didn't cry. I couldn't afford to. For years, I lived in a cycle of exhaustion and routine. My back ached constantly. My hands grew rough and dry from cleaning chemicals. My lunch was often a peanut butter sandwich eaten standing over a copier machine. But every time I looked at Emma's face, I felt something that fueled me. Purpose. She was growing fast. Too fast, and with each passing year, I stretched myself thinner to give her the life I never had. When she wanted to join ballet at age 7, I found a part-time gig on weekends at a bakery to afford the tuition. When she needed braces, I took out a small loan. When she begged for the same expensive sneakers the other girls at school wore, I bought them, then ate rice and canned beans for 2 weeks to cover the groceries. People told me I was spoiling her, that I was doing too much, but they didn't understand. I wasn't spoiling her. I was compensating. For the father she lost. For the time I couldn't spend with her. For every bedtime story I skipped because I was too tired to keep my eyes open. She never asked where her dad went. She simply accepted his absence like children do, without understanding, without question. But I could see the gap in her eyes. I could see it when she watched other kids at parent nights or when we walked past families at the park. I tried to fill it with everything I had. Attention, gifts, support, silence. When she turned 13, we had our first real fight. She called me embarrassing for showing up to school in my janitor uniform. Said her friends didn't need to see that version of me. I nodded, hurt but quiet, and never picked her up in uniform again. I kept my work clothes in the car and changed in gas station bathrooms from that day forward. High school passed in a blur. Emma excelled in everything. Student council, varsity tennis, drama club. She was ambitious, beautiful, magnetic. Teachers loved her. Boys followed her like bees to sugar. And I was proud. So proud I thought my chest might explode. She applied to 8 universities, got accepted into 6, chose Bellevue University, an elite private school with a tuition I couldn't dream of affording. "Don't worry, Mom," she said, "we'll find a way." And we did. I took out another loan, worked overtime, found a night shift at a warehouse. My doctor warned me about my blood pressure, told me I needed to rest. I laughed. Rest was a luxury I couldn't afford. Emma graduated top of her class, got her degree in business finance, landed a job at a tech company before she even walked across the stage in her cap and gown. I sat in the back row of the auditorium, clapping until my palms hurt, crying into a napkin I had tucked in my purse. And when she stepped off that stage, I hugged her like I was holding my entire reason for existing. For a while, I believed my job was done. She moved into her own place, bought her own car, dressed like the successful woman she had always dreamed of being. And still, she visited. Not often, but enough. She brought takeout sometimes, asked me how I was doing. But then things shifted. She stopped asking how I was. She started telling me what to do. Don't spend your money on that, Mom. You need to update your will. You shouldn't be living alone anymore. I thought it was concern. I thought maybe she was worried. But over time it became clear it wasn't worry, it was control. It was about power. And I had given her all of it, freely, lovingly, foolishly. So when she said she wanted to manage my finances, I heard the unspoken sentence underneath. You're no longer capable. But I wasn't ready to give up yet. Not my independence, not my mind, not my dignity. I had spent too many nights scrubbing other people's floors to hand over my worth like a used checkbook. And yet, I said yes, because I was still her mother, still chasing her love, still believing deep down that maybe she saw me. It started with the water bill. A simple envelope on my kitchen counter one afternoon opened with absent-minded fingers while I stirred soup on the stove. I unfolded it without thinking, expecting the usual total, $70, maybe $80 at most. But the number staring back at me made me pause. $212.49. My first reaction was confusion. Maybe it was a mistake, a clerical error. I called the utility company, holding my breath as tinny music filled my ear. Ma'am, the representative finally said, that's your total after 3 months of overdue payments and late fees. But I pay online, on time, every month. There was a pause. Your auto pay was disabled 2 months ago. My heart sank. I checked my bank app. The login screen wouldn't accept my password. I tried again and again. Locked. When I called the bank to reset my password, the voice on the line asked for my security phrase. I gave it. Wrong. I tried another. Wrong again. The operator hesitated. Ma'am, are you sure this is your account? I froze. That evening, Emma came over. She breezed through the door with her usual confidence, heels clicking, voice light. She sat at the kitchen table, sipping the tea I made out of habit. I handed her the water bill. She glanced at it and shrugged. Oh, right. I forgot to update your payment settings. I'll take care of it. Why was it disabled in the first place? I asked. Relax, Mom. It's just a small mistake. You gave me access to help, remember? I nodded slowly. That's right. I had signed something 2 weeks ago. Bank access forms. She said it would make paying bills easier. No more logging in, no more forgetting passwords. She would manage it all efficiently, responsibly. She had a degree in finance after all. Besides, she added, brushing her perfect hair behind her ear, you don't want to be worrying about this stuff. You should focus on enjoying life. She smiled, the kind of smile that made others believe in her, the kind that had charmed teachers, bosses, landlords, and now me. For the next month, I stopped checking my statements. She said she had it handled. I wanted to believe her. But small things started piling up. One day, I noticed my favorite bracelet was missing from the drawer where I always kept it. It had belonged to my mother. I asked Emma casually if she'd seen it. She said maybe I misplaced it. Maybe I was just getting forgetful. Another time, I went to buy groceries and my card was declined. I was stunned, embarrassed. I stepped aside in the checkout line, my face burning while the teenager behind the register looked at me with awkward sympathy. I used my backup credit card, the one I had for emergencies. When I got home, I called Emma. She answered with a laugh in her voice. Mom, don't worry. I transferred some of your money to a savings account. It's safer there. I'll send some back to checking. But I didn't authorize that. I am authorized, she reminded me gently. Remember, you signed the access forms. Yes, I had. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling again, listening to the house creak around me. That house was full of echoes. Thomas's laughter, Emma's toddler giggles, the hum of the TV on quiet nights. And now, those echoes were being replaced by something else. Uncertainty, anxiety, fear. The next day, I tried to access my own bank again, still locked out. I called the branch directly and requested a meeting in person. The manager, a young man named Philip, welcomed me with a polite smile. I explained my concerns. He pulled up the account on his screen. According to this, he said, squinting, the account holder requested a change in contact information and password 2 weeks ago. I didn't request that. He paused. I can't give you further details, Mrs. Hill. Your daughter has full access, financial power of attorney. It's all in the signed documents. I sat there stunned. She hadn't just helped me pay bills. She had taken over everything. Savings, checking, retirement fund. My entire financial life now flowed through Emma. Philip hesitated. I'm not supposed to say this, but Maybe you should speak to someone, a legal advisor. Legal. This was my daughter. I left the bank with my legs shaking and my purse pressed tightly to my side. Outside, the sunlight felt too bright, the cars too loud, the world suddenly foreign. When Emma came that weekend, I confronted her gently. Why did you change my account passwords? She didn't blink. For security. You forget things sometimes, Mom. I haven't forgotten anything. She tilted her head, her tone changing, lower, slower. You're not as sharp as you used to be. It's okay. I'm here to protect you. Protect me. The words made me shiver. I want to manage my money again, I said, forcing calm into my voice. I want access. She stood up. Mom, I'm trying to help you, but if you insist on being stubborn, maybe we need to have a bigger conversation about guardianship, about whether you're really in a position to live alone. Guardianship? The floor beneath me might as well have opened. Was this what she was aiming for all along? I didn't respond. I couldn't. Emma left that evening without finishing her tea. Her last words before stepping out were soft, almost sweet. Let me know when you're ready to stop fighting me, Mom. I'll be here. I stood by the window and watched her car disappear. And in the silence that followed, I felt something begin to rise inside me. Not panic, not fear, but resolve. The kind that had gotten me through widowhood, through single motherhood, through years of sacrifice. She thought I was weak, but I was about to show her what I was made of. It was the refrigerator that started it. Or rather, the sound it made. An odd, rhythmic clunking like something trying to escape from inside. It had been groaning for weeks, but I had ignored it, assuming I'd get around to it eventually. But that morning, it stopped humming altogether. The milk spoiled, the butter melted, the light inside flickered once, then died. I stood in the kitchen, staring at the lifeless appliance, suddenly aware of how old everything in the house was. How long it had been since I'd upgraded anything. How many times I'd told myself, not this month, maybe next. With a sigh, I sat down at the table and opened my folder of documents, the ones I still kept the old-fashioned way. Printed bank statements, receipts, utility bills. I flipped through them, hoping to see how much I could realistically spare. That's when I noticed it. A transaction, dated 3 months ago, $1,000 withdrawal. I frowned. I didn't remember that. I never withdrew that much in one go. I checked the notes beside it. Branch withdrawal, downtown location. That wasn't my branch. That wasn't even near my neighborhood. I pulled out the statements from previous months. Another flagged item, $650 from an ATM at 2:14 a.m. I stared at it for a long time. I hadn't been awake at that hour in years, let alone outside. A chill crawled up my spine. That afternoon, I went to the bank. Not the one near Emma's condo, not the one I usually went to with her, but the original branch where I had opened my first account 30 years ago. A place where people still remembered me by name. I asked to speak privately to someone. A young woman named Clara welcomed me into her cubicle. I slid the stack of statements across the desk. These transactions, I said, pointing, I don't remember making them. She clicked through my records, her brow furrowed. There have been several large withdrawals, she said, all authorized via your debit card. My debit card hasn't left my purse. She looked uncomfortable. There's a chance someone close to you may have accessed it without your knowledge. I thought back. 3 months ago, Emma had visited unexpectedly. I'd been in the shower when she arrived. I told her the door was open. My purse was on the sofa, my wallet inside. Could she have? No. No, she wouldn't. Would she? Clara leaned in gently. You have the right to file a formal dispute. We'll investigate the transactions and lock your account for now to prevent further unauthorized access. Please, I whispered. When I got home, I locked the door behind me and sat on the floor. Papers spread out around me like puzzle pieces. My hands trembled. I pulled out every statement I had saved, cross-checked dates, highlighted discrepancies. Every month had at least one strange transaction. Some small, some large, clothing stores I hadn't shopped at, tech gadgets I didn't own, gas stations miles away from my home. And that wasn't all. There was a credit card bill tucked in the back, from a bank I had never applied to, under my name. I called the number on the back of the card, gave them my information. The woman on the other end verified everything, and then told me the account had been opened 18 months ago. I hadn't opened any new accounts in years. I checked the purchases, electronics, home decor, delivery food services, all things Emma and Daniel would use. I remembered when they moved into their new apartment, she mentioned new furniture, how she'd found a way to afford it. My name, my credit, my life. I couldn't breathe. I grabbed the edge of the table and steadied myself. And then another memory clicked into place. 2 years ago, I was hospitalized for 3 nights with pneumonia. Emma had handled everything: my insurance, my release forms. A few months after that, my prescription bills had skyrocketed. The insurance company told me my coverage had been maxed out due to recent visits. I hadn't been to those clinics. Emma had used my insurance card. She had taken my wallet from my bag at the hospital, copied it, used it. I was shaking now, full body tremors like cold water poured inside my veins. This wasn't forgetfulness. This wasn't a mistake. This was fraud. Deliberate, systematic, calculated. And worst of all, it had been done by my daughter. The girl I raised, the child I broke my back for, the person I had loved more than anyone in this world. She had stolen from me. Not once, not in a moment of panic, but over and over, for years. And I had thanked her for helping me. I had smiled at her, made her tea. I sat on the floor for a long time that night. Not crying, not yet, just grieving. Because the girl I thought I knew, the daughter I had believed in, was gone. And someone else had taken her place. It happened on a Monday morning just after sunrise. I had barely slept the night before. My thoughts had been looping endlessly. The fraudulent withdrawals, the stolen insurance, the credit card I didn't apply for. I sat in the living room watching the clock tick from 2 SAR to 3 An, then 4 SAO. When the light of morning filtered in through the blinds, I stood up to go make coffee. And the world tilted. Suddenly, the floor wasn't under me. I remember the feeling clearly, not pain but confusion, as if I were stepping into water and sinking fast. The cup slipped from my hand and shattered against the floor, and I followed it. When I opened my eyes again, everything was white. A slow, sterile white. Walls, lights, bed sheets. The beeping beside me was rhythmic and soft. I was in the hospital. A nurse leaned over me, her voice calm but urgent. "You had a collapse, ma'am. Your blood pressure spiked dangerously high. Stress-related, most likely." Stress. Yes, that sounded about right. Emma came to visit later that day. She swept into the room like she belonged there, hugging a bouquet of expensive tulips and a purse that cost more than my rent used to be. Her smile was wide, her tone bright. "Mom, you scared me half to death." I looked at her, feeling the heaviness of the IV in my arm and the hospital gown scratching my skin. She pulled a chair close and sat beside me. "I already spoke to the doctor. They said you'll be fine, but you need rest. You can't keep stressing about everything." I didn't respond. She took my hand, softly but not lovingly, more like possession than affection. "I'll take care of things while you recover," she said. "You just focus on getting better. Don't worry about the house. I'll make sure everything's clean and safe for when you come back." Something about the way she said that word, safe, sent a ripple of discomfort down my spine. I stayed in the hospital for 4 days. The nurses were kind, the food was bland, the TV never worked quite right, but mostly I just lay in silence thinking about my life, about how it had all come to this, lying in a hospital bed while my own daughter made decisions I never authorized. When they discharged me, I asked the hospital to call me a taxi instead of contacting Emma. The driver helped me to the door of my house, my legs still unsteady. I unlocked it slowly, the familiar click of the latch giving me the smallest comfort. But when I stepped inside, everything changed. The hallway was empty. The console table that had sat under the mirror for 2 decades, gone. I moved into the living room, heart pounding. Gone. The sofa, the coffee table, the antique sideboard with my photo albums, the armchair where I had read Thomas's letters. Every piece of furniture, stripped away. I stumbled into the kitchen. The same. The dining table, the chairs, even the clock I'd had since Emma was a baby, vanished. Panic exploded in my chest. I moved through the house like a woman in a nightmare. Bedroom, bare, no dresser, no bed, just the frame. Closets, empty. I dropped to my knees in the middle of the living room and tried to breathe. She had taken everything. Under the guise of safety, while I was unconscious in a hospital bed, my daughter had cleared out my home. Not just my possessions, my memories. She had stripped me of identity. And she hadn't even asked. The call came an hour later. Emma's voice on speaker, cheerful and controlled. "I hope you got home okay, Mom. I had the place cleaned out a bit, too much clutter. And let's be honest, you don't need all that old stuff. It's time to live a little lighter." "Where is everything?" I asked, my voice hoarse. "Donated some, sold some. I used the money to open an emergency fund for you. You're welcome." "You had no right," I said, teeth clenched. "Oh, come on," she said. "I saved you. I'm protecting you. You nearly died last week and you still want to argue?" And then she said something that broke whatever thread was left between us. "You should be grateful. Most people your age end up in nursing homes. I'm letting you keep the house. Letting me. Letting. I sat on the floor of my empty house, the silence pressing against me like a storm. I had spent my life making that house a home. Every picture frame, every worn cushion, every chipped mug had meaning. And now it was gone. Because she decided I didn't deserve to choose anymore, I didn't sleep that night. I sat upright on the bare mattress, staring at the wall. There are moments in life when your soul fractures, not from pain, but from clarity, from the undeniable knowing that someone you loved has chosen to see you as less than human. Emma had taken my money, my name, my credit, my insurance, and now my home. She had erased me, not with violence, not with shouting, but with quiet, calculated logistical theft, the kind no one sees because it hides behind paper and polite smiles. And she did it not when I was strong, but when I was most vulnerable, when my heart was fragile, when my body was breaking. And that, more than the theft, was what I could never forgive. That morning, I packed the few clothes she hadn't taken and walked 2 blocks to Mrs. Agnes's house, my old neighbor, widow of a war veteran, and the only person who had ever seen me cry. She let me in without a word. We drank tea, and I told her everything. She didn't gasp. She didn't say, "Oh no," she just sat in silence, nodding slowly, eyes brimming with quiet rage. "I always knew there was something off in that girl," she said finally. "She doesn't look at people, only through them." I exhaled. For the first time in days, I felt seen. I stayed the night. The next morning, I wrote a list: lawyer, bank records, credit reports, witnesses. Lock all future access. I was no longer afraid. I was no longer confused. I was done being someone's victim. And if Emma thought she had won, if she thought her mother would shrink into the background quietly, she was about to discover exactly who Margaret Hill really was. I started with the bank. This time, I didn't go in as the timid woman unsure of her place. I walked in with a purpose, back straight, eyes clear, folder in hand. Clara, the same teller who had helped me weeks ago, recognized me instantly. She nodded respectfully. "I need access to every transaction made under my name in the past 5 years," I said. Clara didn't ask why. She printed a stack of papers thick as a book. "You'll want to sit," she said gently. I did. For 2 hours, I went line by line, highlighter in hand. There were patterns, monthly payments to companies I didn't recognize, online purchases shipped to addresses that weren't mine, withdrawals in the middle of the night, transfers to accounts not under my name but labeled linked savings. That was my first clue. I asked Clara if we could trace where the funds had gone. She hesitated, then whispered, "I'm not supposed to give this information without authorization, but it was a joint account." I blinked. "Joint with who?" She typed, looked back at me carefully. "Emma Hill." My daughter had linked my savings to an account with her name on it, which meant every time she moved money for safekeeping, she was building her own war chest. I asked Clara to lock all accounts. We opened a new one, fresh, clean, unconnected. She helped me set up a new debit card and PIN. I wrote everything down by hand, stored it in a new notebook I hid inside a cereal box in my pantry. From there, I moved on to the credit agencies. It took 3 phone calls and an in-person appointment, but I finally got a full credit report. 3 open credit cards, 2 personal loans, 1 car lease, all under my Social Security number. I had never applied for any of them. And then came the worst one, a utility account, power and water, registered to a downtown condo address I had never lived in. Emma's condo. She had opened the account in my name, and when she missed payments, the penalties landed on my credit. That explained why I had been denied a loan for dental work last year. She had poisoned my financial future so she could keep her lights on and her refrigerator cold. I walked out of the credit bureau with shaking hands. I didn't cry. I didn't curse. I just decided this wasn't just a daughter taking advantage. This was a criminal, and I was going to treat her like one. The lawyer. His name was Peter Lantham. A recommendation from Agnes, my neighbor. He had helped her nephew escape an elder fraud case years ago. When I walked into his office, he greeted me with a firm handshake and warm, skeptical eyes. "I usually work corporate cases," he said, scanning my folder. "But for you, I'll make an exception." I handed him everything: statements, credit reports, photos of my empty house, screenshots of emails, even the messages Emma had sent me after I got out of the hospital, the ones where she told me to be grateful and stop resisting. He read in silence for nearly 20 minutes. When he finished, he sat back, folded his hands, and exhaled. "This is one of the most thorough personal fraud cases I've seen in a long time," he said. "You've done half my job for me." What do I do now? I asked. He leaned forward. First, you don't talk to her again. Not a word, not a text, nothing. We'll file a cease and desist, and we'll notify the bank and the credit agencies with formal legal letters. Next, I'm filing a civil suit for financial fraud and identity theft. I stared at him. Will she go to jail? He didn't answer at first. Then softly, if the investigation confirms what you've already proven, yes, she could. I didn't know what I felt. Not joy, not vengeance. Just a hollow ache. Because even after everything, I didn't want to destroy my daughter. I just wanted her to stop destroying me. The first strike. We filed the lawsuit on a Tuesday. By Thursday, Emma was notified by mail and email. I didn't hear from her. Not immediately. But I saw it. Online, she posted a vague message. Sometimes the people closest to you will betray you in ways you never imagined, sending love to anyone navigating toxic family ties. The comments flooded in. You're so strong. Cutting off toxic people is self-care. Proud of you, girl. Stay centered. I stared at the screen in disbelief. She had flipped the narrative, made me the abuser, painted herself as the victim of some imaginary neglect or emotional manipulation. There were photos, too. Her and Daniel smiling at brunch, shopping for a new sofa. And I saw it. My old necklace, gold-plated with a small ruby heart, a gift from Thomas when Emma was born. I hadn't worn it in years, but it had been in my jewelry box. Until she sold or wore it. Now, it dangled around her neck as she smiled into the camera, captioned, "Healing looks good on me." I shut my laptop and sat back. I could feel my blood boiling, but I did nothing. Just like Peter told me. Let her dig her own hole, he said. Silence is your weapon now. The turn. 2 weeks later, Emma's lawyer reached out. They wanted to negotiate. Peter laughed when he read the email. This means they've seen the evidence. They know she's cornered. We met in his office again, drew up our demands. Full repayment of all stolen funds, $17,000. Additional $5,000 in damages for stress and credit repair. Formal letter of admission. Public retraction of false claims. Peter looked at me across the desk. Are you sure about the public retraction? I nodded. She used the public to humiliate me. I want her to tell the truth where everyone can see it. Then we go to war, he said. And we did. The digital war came first. After receiving the formal legal notice from Peter, Emma did what modern manipulators do best. She weaponized the internet. Within hours, her social media accounts lit up with curated sadness. There was a black and white selfie of her looking contemplative, captioned, "It hurts when the people who raised you are the same ones trying to tear you down." The likes flooded in. Hundreds. Some people I knew, neighbors, former coworkers. Even the receptionist from my dentist's office left a comment. "Stay strong, beautiful soul. You deserve peace." I watched in silence as the girl I raised turned herself into a public martyr. Her posts came daily, sometimes inspirational quotes, sometimes vague allusions. Breaking generational trauma means saying no, even to family. Blood doesn't entitle anyone to your life. I refuse to be controlled, not anymore. But my favorite? A photo of her holding a mug of tea, one of mine, actually. Recognizable from my old kitchen set. The caption? "Healing isn't pretty, but it's mine." What irony. She drank from my stolen mug in my stolen chair, wearing my stolen necklace, while claiming she was the one in pain. But I didn't reply. I didn't post. Peter had warned me. Every comment, every reaction could be twisted against you. Stay quiet. Let the law speak. So I did. The legal front. The court hearing was scheduled for a Thursday morning at 9 a.m. The night before, I stood in front of my closet looking at my options. Everything I owned now fit in half a wardrobe, thanks to Emma's decluttering. I chose a plain navy dress. No jewelry, no makeup, just me. When I walked into the courthouse, my heart pounded like a drum. Peter was already waiting, calm as always, suit perfectly pressed. "You're ready," he said. I wasn't sure I believed him, but I nodded anyway. Emma arrived 5 minutes later. She looked polished. Crisp white blouse, beige blazer, soft curls, nude lipstick. The picture of respectable professionalism. But her eyes? Cold. She didn't look at me as she passed, didn't nod, didn't blink. Her lawyer was a young man, slick, rehearsed, overconfident. But that confidence cracked quickly. Because Peter, he was prepared. The evidence. We presented bank statements showing unexplained withdrawals totaling over $17,000. Screenshots of online purchases made with my stolen credit card. Utility bills in my name tied to Emma's address. Photographs of my emptied home. Emails and text messages from Emma. Some smug, some threatening, all damning. The courtroom was silent as Peter read aloud a message from Emma where she said, "You should be grateful I'm letting you stay in that house. Most people your age would be in a home by now." Gasps rippled from the public seating. I couldn't look at her, but I felt her gaze on me, burning with rage. Not because she was guilty, but because she was losing. Her defense? She was confused, forgetful. She asked me to help her. But when asked to provide written consent for any of the credit cards or loans, nothing. When asked to explain why my credit score dropped 200 points during the year she managed my finances, no answer. The judge was stern. "This is not a matter of confusion or caretaking," he said, flipping through the stack of documents. "This is identity theft, elder financial abuse, systematic and sustained over time." I sat still, not triumphant, just steady. The verdict. The civil judgment was clear. Emma was to repay $17,000 in full within 6 months. An additional $5,000 in damages for stress, emotional harm, and credit reparation. Legal fees covered by her. And the part Peter insisted on, the public admission. Emma was ordered to post a statement on the same platforms she had used to defame me. It had to include specific phrases, legally reviewed, and remain public for 30 days. She fought that part the most. But she had no choice. The aftermath online. 3 days later, the post went up. I, Emma Hill, admit that I committed financial fraud against my mother, Margaret Hill. I used her identity without permission and misrepresented the truth publicly. The accusations against me are true, and I deeply regret my actions. Overnight, the comments changed. Many were deleted. Some followers unfollowed. Others posted angry reactions. "This is so disappointing. You lied to all of us. I believed you. I defended you." And me? I didn't reply to any of it. Not one word. Because the truth no longer needed defending. It stood on its own. In the eyes of the law, and in the eyes of the woman I had become, the first payment arrived exactly on the date the court ordered. Not a dollar short, not a day late. It was the first time Emma had given me anything without taking more in return. And yet, it brought no joy. Just a quiet confirmation that justice, once awakened, does not negotiate with guilt. Each month, another payment followed. I watched them arrive like clockwork. Cold, clinical, not gifts, not gestures of reconciliation. Just obligation. The final payment came 6 months later on a gray morning filled with rain. I checked the balance, confirmed the transfer, then closed the app. I didn't smile. I didn't cry. Instead, I walked to the window, wrapped a shawl around my shoulders, and stood silently watching water streak down the glass like a baptism. The call. A week after that last payment, the phone rang. I recognized the number instantly. Emma. For a moment, my hand hovered over the screen. And then, against Peter's old advice, I answered. Her voice was different, smaller, fragile, almost afraid. "Mom." I said nothing. She cleared her throat. "I wanted to know if we could talk, not about the case, just us." There it was. The flicker of the daughter I once knew. But the woman who answered her wasn't the mother she remembered. "Emma," I said gently, "the person you hurt doesn't exist anymore." Silence, then a tremble in her voice. "So, is this it? Is this how it ends between us?" I paused, not out of indecision, but to find the right words. "This isn't punishment, Emma. It's protection. For me." Another pause. "Do you hate me?" she asked. "No," I said, "I don't. But I don't trust you. And love without trust isn't love anymore." She said nothing. And then the line went dead. That was the last time we spoke. A new chapter. With the settlement money and what I had quietly saved over the years, I did something no one expected. I bought a house. Not a large one, not luxurious, but mine. A small 2-bedroom cottage 3 hours away from the city, nestled in a sleepy coastal town where the air smelled like salt and new beginnings. The first morning I woke up there, sunlight poured in through sheer curtains, and for the first time in years, I felt safe. I planted flowers in the backyard, roses, daisies, forget-me-nots, flowers that wouldn't have survived in my old city garden, crushed between concrete and shadow. Now they thrived. So did I. I made new routines. Coffee at dawn, watching the waves roll in. Walks to the local market where people greeted me with names and warm smiles. Afternoons spent reading, painting, breathing. No longer defined by labor. No longer living for someone else. Just being. What I learned. People often think the worst pain in life is losing someone you love. But they're wrong. The worst pain is realizing that the person you loved never truly saw you as human. That to them, you were a resource. A ladder. A convenience. And yet, there's power in waking up from that illusion. Because when you do, you stop performing. You stop begging. You stop bending your soul to fit into someone else's version of family. You choose dignity. And that choice is freedom. Kwenjiam kanyan vesutu yeo tuong. I used to believe that motherhood meant giving until you were empty. That love meant endurance. That silence was grace. I don't believe that anymore. I believe love includes limits. That kindness without boundaries is just self-destruction in slow motion. That the most radical act a mother can commit is saying, "You may be my child, but I am still a person." Emma took everything from me. But in the end, she gave me something too, unintentionally. She gave me clarity. And with that, I built a new life not rooted in guilt or duty or fear, but in self-respect. If you're reading this or listening to it, and you've ever felt like your love was being exploited, like your worth was tied only to what you gave, I want you to hear me when I say, you are allowed to walk away. You are allowed to say no. You are allowed to protect your peace, even from your own blood. That is not hate. That is not cruelty. That is wisdom, and I hope you find your peace the way I found mine. Even if it comes later than you hoped. Because late is not the same as never. I live now in my little coastal house with my garden and my silence. And in that silence, there is no emptiness. Only peace, only truth, and only the sound of a woman, finally whole, finally free.